everyone, and welcome back to another Rockies Daily. I'm your host, Scott Ayers, where we're talking all things Colorado Rockies. Oh, boy. And to start today's show, it is a little off the beaten path. It's not solely a focus on the Colorado Rockies. The Rockies are technically involved in all of this because, look, we've talked about on the show, there is a lockout looming at the end of this 2026 season. And the MLB needs leaders. The MLB needs people to step up and help with this lockout situation. And it got dealt with a bit of a curveball, is that Tony Clark, the MLBPA MLBA executive, has resigned. And kind of came out of the middle of nowhere. You know, there was supposed to be different meetings. The MLB was going to hold different player meetings and immediately stopped those meetings as Clark resigned. And at first it looked like, you know, he was being investigated for financial improprieties, and that could still be a thing. But it turns out he was having an inappropriate relationship with his sister-in-law. Now, I haven't done enough investigation to know if that is his brother's wife or his wife's sister, or a third option, his sister's wife. I didn't do that kind of digging. What I do know, though, is this is a major blow to the MLB. And, you know, one of the things that maybe I haven't talked about a ton on this show is that the MLB's top-end leadership has been lacking at times. I'm not necessarily the most confident in guys like Rob Manfred and how he's handled just a lot of different things around the league. And, you know, for Tony Clark, he played a really big role in, you know, the collective bargaining negotiations and agreements. He managed player relations. And with him gone, now the MLB has to scramble and find someone to fill that void. And it's not just like a void where, just get Tim from accounting and he'll be fine. He'll fill in. No, this is a big deal considering, you know, we're a season away from what could be a pretty major lockout. There are a lot of big questions to be asked when this lockout hits. And what they will do with things such as the salary cap and salary floor. I mean, this could be a pretty major lockout for Major League Baseball, and they need to have leaders in place that can help navigate through this and find a middle ground, because it feels like players and owners are pretty far apart on some of the major issues. And so now you lose one of those leaders, which, to even add to this story, is that the in-law, who we don't know, I mean, as I'm recording it, we don't know. I'm sure by the time you're hearing this, you will know brother, sister, wife's. Wait, no, not brother, sister. Brother's wife, wife's sister, or sister's wife. You'll probably know, just because based on what I'm recording, I don't have that information. But besides the point, this person got hired in 2023 to work with the union. And so Tony Clark has this woman get hired, and they're having this inappropriate relationship during this time. And, now the MLB is out of a key leader, and it just kind of goes into this larger picture of maybe the view of MLB leadership right now and the mess it has been. And there are a lot of criticisms out there about Manfred, and this isn't on Manfred, but man, he's going to have to help steer this ship. And I don't know if he's the right guy to do that. So it is not a good situation. I know I'm obviously making a little light of it because it is just like Looney Tunes-esque, because it sounded like it was going to be this financial case of why he stepped down, and it's just a whole lot deeper. And it feels like make-believe. It's not. And the MLB is going to have to figure it out because at the time of recording this, they do not have a replacement yet for Tony Clark. I imagine that they will here, this week. But, man, what a doozy of a situation for Major League Baseball. And it couldn't happen at a worse time, with just so many things that are looming. And, it's just a mess. And so what does that mean for the Colorado Rockies? Because that's what we do. All roads lead back to the Colorado Rockies. Not much. I mean, look, I think they have been also making moves with an expectation that there could be a lockout coming. They didn't make any big signings or anything like that in the offseason. A lot of 1 or 2 year contracts. Do I think they made those deals because, hey, a lockout's coming and we're pretty sure this Clark guy is going to do something dumb? No, I don't think so. But if there is a salary cap, if there is a salary floor, they're going to be set up okay. So what a mess of news that was to kind of be sprung upon us, as we really should be gearing up for the season, for the World Baseball Classic, and instead we're just dealt with a curveball of absolute stink. But besides the point, let's move on. Let's move on from that crud, and let's talk about the Colorado Rockies, and let's talk about some high praise that was given to Kyle Karros from the head skipper Warren Schaefer, who essentially made a comment that Karros is a guy that could win many Gold Gloves in a Rockies uniform. And I think for a lot of us, I mean, that's a big deal. The third base position for the Rockies, I mean, they have had so much talent at that position. So much so they've obviously had a guy who is maybe the best defensive player ever at that position in Nolan Arenado. And when he was gone, Ryan McMahon actually filled those shoes pretty well. And now the Rockies are in a position where they have a guy like Kyle Karros, who's obviously this younger talent that absolutely has a great opportunity to find himself as an everyday starter for the Colorado Rockies. It's why some of these utility signings were great, because it gives the Rockies a chance to just put out their best unit possible, and best infield possible. Now it's obviously more of an uphill climb, but I mean there's different ways that the Rockies can build that infield, right? Could be seen as Freeman is in the outfield. Freeman's at first, Castro at second, Tovar at short, Karros at third. It's one of multiple examples that you can use there. So, for Karros, I don't think defensively that will be the thing that keeps him off the field. It's just what can he do with his appearances at the plate. And if he can even be somewhat effective, I mean, that's huge, and that's a really big development for the Colorado Rockies. Because, you obviously look back, but defensive identity, their infields have been pretty darn good in the past. Now, last couple of years, when I say past, I don't mean last couple of years, but I mean you think of really the 2010s as a whole. So much talent in the infield, especially defensively, and so, man, wouldn't it be nice to kind of get back to that in this second half of the 2020s? Is to really shore up the infield, and if Karros, Tovar, and then Castro, maybe that's your infield. That can really start to help bolstering things defensively. But for Kyle Karros, it's just significant to hear that. And Warren Schaefer has been on a bit of a press tour of just kind of praising different guys on this roster. But it is refreshing to hear about some of these younger guys that might have had struggles in 2025. Just breathing life into those guys, giving them that confidence as we head into spring is a really big deal. And we talk about confidence, and we have to talk about Brett Pill. He did an article with Purple Row, which was great. Renee Deckert, I hope I'm saying that right, gave us some really good insight. And if you aren't familiar with Purple Row, they do a great job on the written end of things. They put out some really, really strong articles just about our beloved Rockies. So I would definitely recommend, if you're done watching this, go and check out that article, because I just took a few snippets from it because I want to dive into Pill, because he's someone that we've talked about. We've talked a lot about Alan Leichman, and we've talked about Warren Schaefer, and we've talked about this front office. Pill's been kind of the one guy that we haven't had a lot of buzz quotes from, right? Like, and so to get this, it was refreshing to read some of the different things that Pill is interested in. One of the big things noted, though, is just his ability to communicate with these players, and having these personal relationships and understanding how these players tick. It's a very needed approach, because all these guys are different. You've got so many different egos. You've got so many different guys going through different things, right? Like, and obviously on the outside, we don't know fully what some of those things are. We can have the speculation when a guy goes in a slump or whatever, but there's a lot going on with these players. And so to have that communication, in the article, he talks about, working on, multiple factors with weights and their swings, and working on data, figuring out that chase rate, which really, really was something that the Rockies struggled with last season. And he had one quote: "Some guys, it could be an approach and what they're looking for. Maybe they're trying to hit every pitch the guy throws." Pill said, "It could be mechanical. It could be how they're moving at this certain point in time, which maybe we do stuff in the weight room for it." So it's just a quick quote about these guys' approaches at the plate, about, some of their issues that they had last season. And, it all is tied and revolved around, how does Pill know these players? Because he can work on a lot of different things with these players. He can figure out, if they're cheating on at bats, right? Like, they're trying to read a pitch and they're just getting it wrong, because there is a huge mental aspect in all this as well. And so, this is obviously a very short summary on an article that is worth the read. So again, I highly recommend checking it out, because there's a lot of quotes in there. But just in the sake of this show and trying to condense things down, I just try to get a couple of big hitters. But the biggest thing that stood out to me is obviously that communication, is obviously understanding that each guy is different, and you have to have a very different approach with each batter, and figuring out, what makes sense. He also talked about figuring out hitting at altitude, because that home road split for the Rockies has always been a bit of a curse, and it's why some of these batters get discredited for the Colorado Rockies. Well, if you look at his road splits, they're just not as good. And so there's just a lot of challenges facing Brett Pill. And to be fully truthful with you guys, he's the one hire that I'm cautiously optimistic about. I feel a lot more optimistic about, the front office hires. I feel pretty optimistic about Alan Leichman. For Pill, I'm just curious to see what he's able to bring. And the biggest thing is just, it's been a lot of work at the minor league level, which isn't a knock against Pill, but I want to see what he's able to do, with a roster full of major league guys. And what does that approach actually look like? Because it could be a home run hire. I just don't know yet, and I don't feel comfortable planting my flag there yet. But seriously, a very, very interesting article to hear from Brett Pill. And the reason why I say it's very interesting is just, we haven't heard a ton from him yet. It's been a lot of the Alan Leichman show or the Warren Schaefer show. So it was our word of the week refreshing to hear from Pill, and just get more insight into what he's hoping to accomplish. And there's a lot of challenges with this team and the issues they had last year. Strikeout rate was bad, chase rate was bad, just knocking in runs was bad. You could kind of go down a list. And so how he addresses that will be a big test in year one. He's coming in with his hands quite full. And the good news is, or you could say it as bad news, I see it as good news, is we're going to start to see some of these things unfold starting tomorrow on Friday. That's the start of the spring season. The Rockies will take on the Arizona Diamondbacks. We don't have yet matchups or anything like that, but it is finally here. Baseball is back, baby. And what's exciting is we've talked about Pill, we've talked about Leichman, we've talked about all these different guys developing, the excitement in the clubhouse, and it's just a spring training game, but it's like putting that pen to paper, seeing that action. What will this team start to look like? And again, it's just the beginning of the spring season. You can't expect all these crazy changes overnight, but it's the start of seeing those changes that's really exciting to me. And what will unfold for the Colorado Rockies, and what will their identity start to look like? It's all part of this foundation that we've talked about, and we're gonna start to finally get it, which is really exciting. But ultimately, I almost want to hit the fast forward button and get to the start of the season, see what we're rocking with for that 26-man roster. Because it's almost here. I want baseball to be back. I want to see what this team looks like. I want to see what Alan Leichman has cooking and how Brett Pill can fix these swings. And what does the in-game work of Warren Schaefer look like this season with more at his disposal? So many different things that we're going to be able to see. And it all starts on Friday. So really exciting stuff. And with that, we're at the end of another episode. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, continue to leave comments, whether you agree or disagree, things that just really riled you up. If you have opinions about what the heck's going on with Tony Clark, there's just a lot going on. But regardless, I appreciate you watching. I hope you have a wonderful Thursday, and I will see you tomorrow.